choices this morning. As you've seen on the video clip, my daughter Erin, who was 16 years old at the time, is serving 2 life sentences in a Texas prison. A young man by the name of Charlie Wilkinson, who was the boyfriend, is serving life without the possibility of parole. Charlie Wilkinson was 18. Charles Wade, who was 19, is serving life without the possibility of parole. You also saw a 4th young person by the name of Bobby Johnson. Bobby Johnson was the girlfriend of Charles Wade. Now, Bobby Johnson's interesting about Bobby Johnson. Bobby just came along for the ride. She just wanted to fit in, be a part of the crowd. And just because Bobby wanted to fit in and just be a part of the crowd, Bobby Johnson's life has forever changed as well. Bobby Johnson is serving 40 years of her life in a Texas prison today. My daughter Erin came from a good home, a good Christian home. We brought Erin up right. Along with having a daughter Erin, we had 2 sons, Matthew and Tyler. Matthew was 13 years old. My son Tyler was 8 years old. I was married to a wonderful woman named Penny. Penny was 38 years old. We were married for 18 years. And there we were raising our family in church, and I served as youth pastor for around 15 years. And we were just bringing our family up to church, just doing it the right way. And when Erin turned 16 years old, she started showing signs of rebellion. And I think as a parent, I was naive to a lot of things. I thought, well, I brought Erin up in church. She came from a good home. I don't have to worry about her. She'll be okay. I began to think about my own self as a youngster. I was rebellious. I can remember thinking my parents knew nothing. I knew everything. And, I outgrew those things. And I knew Erin. I thought Erin would. But when Erin was 16 and a half years old, she met a young man by the name of Charlie Wilkinson that you've seen there on the screen. Charlie Wilkinson would be later diagnosed as a sociopath. When he met her, there's a lot of things I would not find out until after the fact. But Erin had only dated Charlie for about 4 or 5 months. And it's just amazing how he was able to break down in 4 or 5 months what her mother and I had built for 16 years. But it shows you what happens when you don't listen to authority, when you don't listen to your parents. And Erin began to make wrong choices. And to kind of speed the story up, we found out that Erin was sneaking out of the house, drinking and going places she shouldn't be going. And as a parent, her mother and I was very upset. And we wanted the best for Erin as well as our other 2 children. And we sat Erin down on a Wednesday night after finding out that she was sneaking out of the house and drinking. Like I said, I would find out other things later. But we sat Erin down. We said, Erin, this relationship, it's over. We put an end to that relationship. And 2 days later, on March 1st, 2008, at 3 o'clock in the morning, her boyfriend, Charlie Wilkinson, and his accomplice, Charles Wade, burst into our bedroom and began to open fire on my wife and I. I'll never forget those sounds as long as I live. If you've been around guns, we've got any hunters in the room, you've been around firearms, you know how loud they can be. What guns are a tool. They're not meant to be used as a weapon as far as murder. And here it is, I'm sound asleep in our bed, and moments earlier we're being attacked in our bedroom. At first I'm thinking home invasion or a robbery. I had no idea that it was my 16-year-old daughter's ex-boyfriend coming in to get revenge, all because we made them break up. I can remember raising up in the bed and throwing my body out, trying to shield the gunfire. I took multiple shots in the arm and chest, and I took a blast in the face, and that shot blew me out of bed. And there I'm laying on the floor in a pool of blood, thinking, God, where are you? God, where are you? Why is this happening? I'm in shock. I can't believe this is happening. I'm trying to speak, but I can't speak. I'm bleeding everywhere. I'm in shock. And a few moments later, one of the gunmen came over to my side of the bed. I would later find out that it was Charles Wade. And Charles Wade aimed a handgun at my back, shot me in the back 4 times, once in the back of the leg, shooting me a total of 11 times. I'm going in and out of consciousness at this time. Again, not sure who this is in my home. I remember waking up at one point, and my thoughts go to my children who were upstairs. Then I could hear footsteps leading upstairs. I really began to panic because I knew whoever this was in my home, they were going after my children as well. And one of the hardest things for me to talk about today is what I'll share with you next. As I'm trying to get up off the floor, as I'm bleeding and been shot 11 times, not sure if my wife is okay. I could hear Matthew cry out, my 13-year-old son. He cried out, "No, Charlie, no, please don't do this. No, Charlie." When he mentioned Charlie's name, I knew who was in my home. I knew why he was there. He was getting revenge. All because he could not be with a girl. All this because he could not be with a girl. I heard the shots go out. I heard Matthew being shot. I guess it was the shock of that. He'd been shot 11 times. I remember I collapsed and went out. I woke up and I felt real hot. I could smell smoke, and I thought this was a nightmare. This was a dream. Certainly this just didn't happen. I realized quickly this wasn't a dream. This really happened. I realized my house was on fire. Not only did they come in and attack my family in the middle of the night, they set my house on fire. Give you a thought for just a moment. I know at this moment we've got some high schoolers that we need to dismiss to class. And I want to ask you, if you want to pick up, if you want to know more about my story, you can go to my website, terrycathy.com. Also my book, Terror by Night. We're having a revival at Lee's Chapel this week. If you don't have anywhere to be tonight or even the rest of the week, it'll go on through Friday, I do believe. Come on out to Lee's Chapel, number 1, and experience some of God's goodness there at the revival. So at this time, if the high schoolers would go to class at this time. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate y'all. I appreciate these guys coming. Sorry about the disruption, but they need to get back to class. I thought that was a good place to kind of stop there this morning and kind of let you ponder on that thought of what I'm sharing with you this morning. It kind of gives me a chance to regroup and think about what I want to say to you next. Because I tell you, this is still hard for me today. As many times as I've shared this story, it's difficult for me. But I think it's important. I really believe that God spared my life for a reason. And one of those reasons is to be here today with you all. And I believe it's by no accident that we're all here today. And I believe that God's got something for each and every one of you today. And one thing I want to say before I go on any further. If you don't get anything out of what I say this morning, get this, young people. I want you to know this. Listen, God loves you. And God has a purpose and plan for each and every one of you. And I want to tell you this morning, I promise you this, and it won't always be easy, but I promise you this morning, young people, if you'll do it God's way, He'll bless you. You'll go far in life. God will take you further than your wildest dreams. That's right. So stop and think about that this morning as we talk about choices, as I share my testimony. I left you there as my family was being attacked. I heard my 13-year-old son, Matthew, crying out, "No, Charlie, no." I knew who was in my home. It was Charlie getting revenge, all because he could not be with a girl. I finally made it to my feet. I'm scanning the room. I can't see my wife anywhere. I don't know if she's dead or alive. I'm choking on blood and smoke. I'm confused. And I said, I've got to get to my children. I pushed through the doorway of the bedroom, and I'm hit by a wall of flames. And the house is totally engulfed. I can hear windows exploding. Things falling off the wall. They're in the hallway as I'm trying to get up the stairs. Something's falling down on top of me. And the house is just totally engulfed. I'm forced back into the bedroom and choking on blood and smoke and thinking, God, help me. God, where are you? I climbed over the bed to get away from the flames, and there I found my wife there dead on the floor. Found my wife of 18 years, my best friend, dead on the floor. Not only did they come in with guns, but they came in with these long samurai swords. They came in not only shooting, but stabbing. And when I found my wife, I knew she was already gone. They had nearly decapitated my wife. The hardest thing I did that night is crawling out my bathroom window. I couldn't get my family out. My house is totally engulfed. The right side of my body is completely paralyzed. I have no feeling. And even though as I fell to the ground outside, and even though I saw what I saw and I heard what I heard, I thought if I can only get to my neighbor's house, somehow we can fix this and put this back together. But I want to tell you, young people, there's certain things you can do. You can go too far. There's things you can't put back. There's things you can't fix. There's things you can do that will affect your life and those around you forever. This would be one of them. Our closest neighbors were the Gastons. We lived out in rural East Texas on about 20-25 acres. Our closest neighbors were the Gastons. I began to make my way to their house. I would take a few steps and I would stumble and fall in the dirt. And I can remember dragging my body with my good left arm as my right side stayed limp and numb and paralyzed. They said it took me about an hour to crawl the length of 4 football fields that night. I can remember falling into a creek about halfway between my home and my neighbors. And by the grace of God, I crawled out on the other side of that creek. And when I did, I think reality hit me at that point. As I looked back at my burning house, I realized that no effort on my part is going to bring them back. I remember saying, God, everything that's most precious to me is in that home. God, just let me die. But I felt the hand of God saying, you need to get up. You need to keep moving. I want to encourage you young people, you may be at a place in your life you're discouraged. Maybe you're going through something in life you don't understand. And maybe you just feel like you want to quit. Let me say this morning, don't quit. Don't give up. Stand. My Bible tells me if all you can do is just stand there and call upon His name. I can remember just standing there in that darkness, weak and trembling in the darkness. My lungs were collapsing. I'd then lost a big portion of my blood. But I remember crying out, God, help me. I want to say this morning, you can't do it without God. You can try it any other way, and you'll fail every time. But God is the only way. And I cried out to God, God, help me get me there. I made it to my neighbor's house, and to fast forward the story, they, of course, called 911. They rushed me off to the hospital. Doctors and nurses are working on me. I could hear doctors and nurses saying things like, he shouldn't be alive. He's lost too much blood. He's critical. There's so much commotion going on around me. They even called my sister and brother-in-law in and said he's very critical. We're prepping for surgery, but there's a good possibility he may not make it through. And I can remember just saying, just let me die. I cried out to God, God, just let me die. But God wouldn't let me die. I spent about a week in the hospital, and in that week, I can't even describe the depression that began to set in, that heaviness, as you can imagine. Not only that depression, but that anger, that bitterness and rage that was going within inside me because they had taken something so precious from me. I was so angry. I was so bitter. Went to stay with my sister, had nowhere to go. They had not only taken my family, but burnt my house down, had nothing. Sat there on my sister's couch one night and began to plan my own suicide because I thought life wasn't worth living. Let me tell you, young person, I go into a lot of schools. I get called into a lot of schools where young people somebody had just committed suicide. I know the pressures get tough. There's that peer pressure, maybe problems at home. But let me say this morning, suicide is not the answer. God is the answer this morning. But I thought that was the only way. Woke up early one morning, went back to my property, that place that used to be my home, our dream cabin in the woods. Place where I raised a family. I had a wife and 3 children. Now it's just a heap of ashes. I can remember stepping up on that mound of ashes. I cried out to God. I said, God, why?
Good morning, PRC.
God, why? God, why did you allow this to happen?
Chris Alvarado.
I was confused. I didn't know why would God allow this?
Ready?
God, what's your purpose in all this? God, I just don't understand.
I pledge allegiance.
I began to cry out to God. But I was confused. I was just about ready to end my life, and I said, God, why did you have to take my family? God, what's my purpose?
Liberty and justice.
And just as soon as I cried out, God, why did you take my family? I found a piece of paper, and I have it up front with me, and if any of you want to see it later, come see me. But on that piece of paper, that burnt piece of paper that I found there that day, it said this, it said, God, I don't understand why you take my family and leave me behind to struggle along without them. And I guess I may never totally understand that part of it, but I believe that you're sovereign and that you're in control. God showed up that day. Listen, He didn't give me all the answers. I don't have all the answers today. All I do is I just trust Him. And I want to ask you this morning to do the same, even when you don't understand the circumstances. Just trust Him this morning. I said, God, I don't know what you're calling me out to do, but God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm here this morning because God has told me.
Any students wishing to be a library assistant?
I want to be a blessing to you. I want to be a help to you this morning. But I tell you what brought me to my knees that day, after I found that page, I found out that it came from a book called Blind Sight. I knew the author of the book Blind Sight was my children's karate instructor. It was a local pastor, now he's in prison ministry. I would find out that book Blind Sight, the main character named Tom